Welcome to Big Three's discussion on Hold Paramount Chapter 3.
All two of us.
All two of us. We're going to be discussing several things as we go over in Chapter 3. It's more about being professional, but it's how our professionalism affects human welfare. There are several main points in the chapter I'm just going to read off to you. We have moral responsibilities of engineers, engineering and terrorism, engineers as intelligent robots. What is integrity?
Okay, moral responsibilities of engineers. If something says there should be a handrail, well, that's kind of up to the contractor whether they want to put it in. But if it says there shall be a handrail,
there shall be a handrail.
There has to be a handrail, or they could be like sued for not doing what they're told.
They haven't fulfilled their contract then. Okay, so different things like that give engineers a little space, but as it says in most engineering code of ethics, the engineer shall hold paramount the health, safety, and welfare of the public. It says shall, not should. So they must hold paramount the safety of the public. Okay, it brings up the topic of engineering and terrorism, and that how engineering sort of changed maybe since September 11th, and that engineers now maybe have a responsibility to make everything terrorist-proof, or at least take terrorism into consideration when they're building it. Do you think that's really necessary? Or?
I don't think that's necessary for everything. I think important buildings like the Pentagon, the White House, those things should be, a little more prepared for attacks. But I'm not really
building the local steakhouse shouldn't necessarily.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Kroger. I'm not worried about Kroger.
Okay. So engineering with engineering,
Except the new Kroger. I really like that.
They mainly have to be concerned with the people who are going to be using it, not necessarily for everything. Take into account what might be done to destroy this thing. Obviously, if you're in a war or something, not all buildings are going to stand up. Buildings aren't going to stand up just because they aren't well engineered. It's because they're trying to be ruined. So,
like in class, we were talking about whether the design of building is really important, or whether the design of a piece of software is really important. It depends on how it's being used. If it's like a skyscraper that's got 10 kajillion people in it, I think if I was one of those 10 kajillion people, I would want to feel a little safer. Is this a big important building? Well, yeah, kind of. Okay, protect me a little bit better. It's kind of the use of the building or whatever.
Now we have engineers. Discuss engineers as intelligent robots, meaning that sometimes in certain societies, engineers have just been turned into sort of computational machines. You give them a problem and they'll do the math on it or do the hard engineering topics, but they'll never take into consideration maybe what they're even doing. They're not thinking about safety. They're not thinking about how this is gonna impact people. They're not thinking whether it's morally right or wrong. They're just thinking, I'm here to do my job. And it gives the example of Chernobyl. I think that's how it's pronounced. Nuclear disaster. The people weren't thinking. They weren't holding paramount the safety of people around them, the environment. They were just doing their jobs, following orders, and
they ignored alarms and all these nice little signals. What was it? 6 alarms?
6 alarms.
And they turned them off. And then there was this big old meltdown. It was all bad.
It's still bad.
Yeah.
Box 3.4 says, what is integrity? What is integrity?
What?
It can be defined in popular literature as generally ethical behavior. So, what does that mean? We've discussed about ethics in different ways a lot of times already. So,
a lot.
I guess integrity is sometimes defined as, people sticking to their principles, being upright to those principles, and sort of having core values that they stand to and stand up for. Which sounds good, but aren't always. Give for instance, Nazis, they had a set of core values, they believed in them, they acted on them, they stood up for them, and they were totally wrong.
And it got to the point where there's the annihilation of so many people, and just because you totally believe something doesn't mean it's right.
Correct.
It kind of has to have a sound basis.
So, what did we learn in Hold Paramount Chapter 3?
Well,
we learned that maybe engineers have to take into consideration things they didn't always have to take into consideration, like terrorism. And anything else do you think we learned?
Well, I think we kind of learned that you don't always have to take into account the terrorist factor.
That's true.
However, if we keep going, we'll end up restating what we said earlier. So,
good point.
In
that
summation,
pretty much concludes.
Yeah, we're done.
We're done.
We're done.
That's the end.
That's all we have. Judson, turn off the camera.